Welcome to Podcast Circle. I am the creator and host, Alex Hitt. On each episode of Podcast Circle, we bring together a group of entrepreneurs and business owners to have roundtable discussions about our experiences building and running businesses today. While I host and moderate the conversation, the views and opinions expressed by each guest are their own. I do not endorse any products, services, or advice shared on the podcast unless explicitly stated. With that said, let's jump into our introductions so you know who has joined us today. Laura, please start us off.
Laura Lorenz, Top Floor Mentoring, topfloormentoring.com.
Lori Kerstein, Impact Communication Solutions, impactcommunicationsolutions.com.
Roelf Woldering, The Right Talent, the-right-talent.ca.
Burt Levy, Revenue Mountain, revenuemountain.com.
The topic of discussion today is, what's a story of a professional career transition you or someone you know made, and why do you think you or they were successful? Laura, would you please start us off?
I used to have a marketing agency that I built from the ground up with a partner. We had 10 employees. We did everything marketing agencies do from soup to nuts. And I was working with the professionals in that organization. They were all young millennials, creatives. And I found that I had a huge passion for working with young professionals. And so when I left the marketing agency, I started my own business called Top Floor Mentoring, which you've heard. And the reason that I did it is this passion. And I got to tell you, I am a much happier person working with the type of clients that I want to work with. It was painful in the beginning. You know, starting a business is hard. I've done it 3 times now, so I feel like a veteran, but the rewards in doing what you want to do with your life and your passion are just amazing. So highly recommend jumping and doing what you want to do with your life.
I really was a very traditional person for a very long time, but not inside. So I tried to fit into a lot of different boxes in corporate America where I never fit. And then I tried to make my way out of it and tried to start a number of businesses and was not even moderately successful, because what was happening was I was putting all of the shoulds first. I should do this. I should move as fast as I can. All of the sort of rules that we learn about business instead of having it come from me. And what happened was I had a breakthrough a number of months ago, and I said, wait a minute, I need to be retired. And not in terms of leaving work, because I don't have the money to do that, frankly, not yet. But it was all about, I have to have that way of thinking that whatever I do, it's got to please me. It's got to be really fulfilling. It's got to let all of me out to be of incredible use to me and to everybody around me, because that's what I love. So now I have my own business that I'm building. And I also have a job that's starting soon that is totally free time for me to keep working on my business. So I have created an entirely new way of living by changing my mindset. And that's why I think I'm going to be incredibly successful, along with being fabulous, of course.
Well, here I was in my early 20s, your typical programming nerd, full of code, happy as a lark. And then they said, well, why don't you manage a few people? I managed a few programmers, pretty successful. I managed a few more. Then they said, well, you're obviously a project manager. Why don't you manage this software implementation project? I did. I created the world's most magnificent project disaster. I had users screaming at the top of their lungs that they never wanted to talk to me again. And I walked in one Monday morning and I heard 2 words, you're fired. Well, a couple of months later, I kind of recovered from that. And my night school prof in applied social science started to laugh when I told him this story. And he said, well, Woldering, you're the typical technology nerd. You know lots about machines and nothing about people. And yet here you are trying to manage projects which are all about people. I took those words very seriously, and I completely changed my educational stream I was going in. And I eventually ended up in doctoral level programs in the social psychology of work, not social psychology in general, but specifically focused on work. And as I did that education, my life changed. I became a project manager who knew about technology and people. I became a turnaround project manager who knew about technology and how to revitalize people. And I eventually ended up in a corporate career as a turnaround CIO, CEO. What a fantastic few sets of words. You're a technology nerd. You know nothing about people. Transition point that I'll never forget.
As most of you know, I'm a recovering media professional. I spent 22 years at the Chicago Sun-Times. I served as director of the entertainment division, advertising director of big box retail, local retail, and also as publisher of North Shore Magazine. When we sold North Shore Magazine about 10 years ago, I moved into the tech space probably 10 years behind the majority of my peers. And I joined a company in Chicago called Kumo Partners. And what we did is we specialize in data automation and integration and low-code, no-code application development. I will not be architecting any of these, and I knew little about the technical component. But in the course of probably the last year and a half or so, I've driven high six-figure revenue to Kumo, not because of my knowledge in tech, but because of the magnificent network I've built over the years. Many are in C-suite positions now. Many own their own companies. Many in middle management I hired into the world when they were 22. So there's a lot of places you can go. And the wonderful thing about data is it applies to everybody because data comes from everywhere. Everybody uses it in different sizes, shapes, and forms. And most companies are miles behind where they should be relative to their data. So just by having built a great network over the years, treating people right, being able to go to sleep at night while you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm good, and not compromising your integrity for money. Those are some of the things that led me to be able to make a successful transition into technology coming from the media world.
I had a pretty significant career transition because of COVID. I was an international award-winning hotel manager, and I moved to Hawaii December of 2019 to work in hotels. I got the best job of my entire life. And then on my first day, they called me and they said, don't come into work today. You're laid off because of COVID. And I was brand new to Hawaii. I had a new $2,000 a month rent payment and zero income. And I didn't qualify for unemployment because I quit my old job and hadn't even started my new one. And so I started doing food delivery. I started flipping furniture on Facebook. At one point, I sold 900 pounds of old concrete out of the back of my Honda Fit. And I really was thinking I would eventually go back to hotels. And then after about a year of being laid off, I realized I will never go back to hotels. So I became a real estate agent because what else am I going to do? I think that's why most people become real estate agents. And I knew nobody in Hawaii. I just moved there and we were still on lockdown. But through social media, I was able to sell 3 homes in Hawaii for about $1 million a piece. And my first sale, I actually made more money than I did the entire previous year. And then I did 2 more, which was pretty incredible. But I think why I was successful was I really had no other option. I was kind of the lackadaisical, cool hotel manager, let the inmates run the asylum type. And I was very good at that kind of management structure. But it caused me to really step into maybe adulthood a little bit more and become more serious about career and money and planning. And I also had the benefit of being young, so I could do that job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with a lot of intensity. And it really was a very intense battle to make being a real estate in Hawaii work. And at the time I had the mindset of I can do whatever I want, but I have to do whatever it takes. And I had a whatever it takes mindset in Hawaii for the time that I was there. And I did some pretty amazing things because of that. And it opened me up to the possibility of what I could do outside of being a real estate agent. And since then, I've grown an online business and successful in a lot of other ways. But yeah, I really enjoyed hearing your stories. Any kind of thoughts or insights as everybody was talking and sharing?
I think that one of the key things to any transition is not necessarily being an expert in what you're transitioning to, but it's really being able to be a great listener, ask the right questions, and hoping that you have a potential employer that will hire for character and train for skill. That is a model that has never, ever, ever failed me. I've hired people with zero experience but phenomenal character, and they turned out to be top performers consistently. Every person, not one failed. And then I've hired people with great experience that turned out to be not so good. So I love the hire for character, train for skill model, and with the mentality of always be the student. Surround yourself with better people, with smarter people, because what you surround yourself with is what you will wind up being. And it's one of the most important things you could do in any transition. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, I need help. It's one of the greatest qualities you can have in business, but yet one that many in business today are devoid of doing. Asking for help, acknowledging they need help, and accepting help when it's offered. It's something that the next generation of leaders really need to work on in order to be great leaders.
I agree. I think one of the things that I heard from all of us was whether we left because of COVID or being fired or hating corporate world or whatever, we all had a do what it takes mentality because we love what we're doing and we wanted to make it work. And I think that that's really important as an entrepreneur. You can't go into entrepreneurship and just think it's all going to work. You've got to work hard and you got to have a passion and you got to do what it takes.
Two words which stand out for me and when I'm listening to you are resilience and then a phrase, lifelong learning. Each of you talked about how resilient you were in the face of the adversity, but each of you also talked about an openness to learn no matter what stage of your life you were at.
I'm going to give a sort of counterpoint to this. There is this social idea, if you just work really hard, you'll get what you need or what you want. This is not true for a lot of people. Some people, they get that, like that's in alignment with them and they can do it. I'm not one of them. I have a high pilot light. I already work so hard internally that if I do too much, I'm basically just spinning my wheels, burning out the gears. So I've had to learn the opposite side of allowing information to come in, allowing learning, because I'm a lifelong learner. I just love it. I'm a massive communicator. I love it. But as long as I was trying really, really hard, it was really, really not working for me. So that's the other side of that coin.
I agree with that. I don't think you have to try really, really hard. I just think you have to do the right things in a smart way.
True. And for me, figuring out what the right things are has also been something I've had to address with allowing some intuition and some chance, if you will, along with being strategic, because I'm very creative, very strategic, but I will err in business on the side of being strategic. And so I've learned how to balance that, because when I get out of balance, then nothing gets done or nothing gets done right in the right order.
I think that a big component of this too, it's not just being an entrepreneur, you want to pick an industry that you're passionate about. You want to pick a product that you believe in. You know, they always say never sell anything you wouldn't buy yourself. And that's a big thing. You know, there's that old saying, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And conceptually, it's true, because there's so much joy in just doing what you do that you don't even really look at it as work. And that's the biggest component. Some people just, they want to be entrepreneurs, they find a window and they say, I'm going to do this. Sometimes this isn't what they're passionate about. It's a means to an end. And I think if you could find something that really truly moves you, you know, in my case, technology really moved me, but the three principles of the firm moved me. They were brilliant young entrepreneurs and they still are. And that's what moved me. So again, surrounding yourself with people that are smarter, better, that you can learn from. And also, if it works symbiotic, they can teach you, you can teach them. That's the best.
So resilience lets you overcome the adversity. Lifelong learning helps point you in the new direction. But without the passion, you don't have the energy to make it all come together and make it all work, because passion is what gives you the enjoyment.
Hallelujah.
That's gorgeous. Just gorgeous. I think also the other thing is people who come into entrepreneurship don't have a clue. I mean, and, you know, guilty as charged, just don't have a clue. And if you come into it later, as I did, you really don't know, because now you've got all of the corporate structures that you're used to and you just assume that things work. And the overwhelming number of things that have to happen in order for you, especially for me as a single person, the number of things that have to be done, like supporting yourself financially as well as trying to build your business, is incredible. And I spoke to a friend yesterday who's an amazing baker, and she said, oh, I don't really need, like, you know, to learn about business. And I thought, call me when you try to sell things, you know, call me when you try to put your systems together, call me when you need to communicate.
I was thinking, as everybody was talking, passion and hard work is definitely important. I've talked to some very, very successful people though. And one of the other things that was picked up on was luck, right? And how luck and timing is also very important. It's the Thomas Jefferson quote of, I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more of it I have. That is a wrap for this episode of Podcast Circle. Thank you to all of our guests for their insights today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. Also, head over to my website, alexhitt.com, to find additional resources, to attend upcoming online events, and to apply to be the next guest on Podcast Circle.